Hello, folks, and welcome to the next session in the Buyer Insights and Intelligence series. My name is Andrew Gaffney. I'm Editorial Director with Demand Gen Report. Really glad you could join us today for this next session. We've been publishing Demand Gen Report for about 12 years now, and I think one of the sort of fallacies out there that we've seen is the idea that marketing can magically create leads that are just ready for sales to go out and convert. I think it's particularly challenging to believe that in today's challenging market. A lot of folks are out there researching. We're seeing a lot of marketers that are seeing good activity from the marketing side, but then they're really having a hard time converting them over to sales ready. So we've got a great session coming up now for you that's going to look at the myth of the sales ready lead, and we'll be talking about bridging the gap between identifying and creating in-market opportunities. We've got a great speaker that's going to be helping us to address this topic. We want to make today's session as interactive as possible, so we really encourage you to participate, share anything that you have heard and liked on social media, any comments or questions. Our team will be monitoring that. We'd ask if you could include the hashtag BII20, and again, we can respond to any comments there or repost them ourselves. You'll see on your screen some of the handles for today's companies that are participating if you want to include those as well. Today's presentation is scheduled to last for around 30 minutes. We encourage you to type in any questions that you have for the speaker. We'll save the question for the end of the presentation, but go ahead and type them in as they come to mind. If we don't get to your question today, we'll ask our speaker to follow up with you directly. Also, if you look in the bottom right-hand corner of the On24 platform, you'll see that there's some related resources that you can access. You can also monitor social media on the left side. We'll have a couple of polls that we'll ask you to participate in as well today. And one of the frequently asked questions we get is if the session is being recorded, and yes, it is. You'll get a link to go back and review or share with your peers. So I want to jump in and get started today. I mentioned we've got a great speaker. I've had the good fortune of working with Chris Rack over the years. Chris is CRO of Pure B2B. He's been a speaker at our B2BMX event. Chris has 10 years experience in demand generation and is an expert in growing top-line revenue and getting results from sales teams. He's a master of sales planning and strategy and has driven the company's rapid revenue growth. Chris's passion for serving the customer and his talent for innovative product development has led to new solutions that solve complex problems for their clients. Chris worked previously for other early-stage rapid growth companies in the demand generation space, including eMedia and Spiceworks. So, Chris, welcome. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Andrew. Definitely appreciate it. As Andrew mentioned, converting leads is one of the biggest challenges for any sales and marketing team, and obviously COVID-19 hasn't made it a lot easier. So the goal here is to talk through some gaps, currently in the pipeline and the flow from lead into pipeline and obviously revenue, and how focusing on different parts of the sales funnel may or may not be impacting your team's performance. The global pandemic has affected us all very differently, right? From the day-to-day work environments that we all now work in, right, to how we engage with our prospects and customers. COVID-19 hasn't caused a shortage of challenges for us in sales and marketing. So I just wanted to take a second to share a bit about what we're hearing from our over 500 B2B technology clients at Pure B2B, right? First and foremost, no live events, right? Not being able to meet with prospective buyers and clients live and in person has caused a ton of challenges, both from a lead generation and a lead conversion and opportunity and pipeline creation standpoint, right? All of us have likely experienced some form of budget cut, but with those budget cuts don't always mean quota and target cuts. Hiring freezes are also fairly common right now. This is straining all of the bandwidth that we're seeing to be able to not only produce quality content, but also push leads, from the very top of the funnel down to the bottom of the funnel, and also identifying, in-market opportunities. And then finally, organic traffic has decreased pretty significantly over the past 3 to 4 months, right? People are prioritizing, going into emergency mode, right, or COVID mode, just to try to make sure that their businesses are set up for future, success and future growth, and deprioritizing researching, and purchasing other products or solutions that might solve a need for them. So even before COVID-19, focusing 100% of sales and marketing resources on trying to identify sales-ready leads leaves a pretty substantial gap in your demand gen planning, right? Why is this? Right? The numbers say that at any given time, only 3% of your total addressable market is in active buying mode, right? And believe it or not, that number's decreased over the past 3 or 4 months, as I mentioned before, right? What this leaves is 37% of the market who either intend to change somewhat soon or have a need, problem, or solution, right, that they've identified, but they're simply not ready to act, right? Why are we seeing this? Given the problem is that finding the 3% is becoming significantly more difficult than it was just 8 to 10 years ago, right? And that's because of 2 different factors. The number of disruptors, or the amount of companies in each specific software or technology category has increased by about 10x. 8 to 10 years ago, HR technology and IT management software, there might have been 5 or 6 significant players. Now there's 40 to 50, right? The amount of search and the amount of companies actively researching or in market for those solutions has stayed the same, right? So the traffic that used to come to your site, raise their hand and say, I'm looking to buy, has declined by about 40%, right? Because of this, it's important to play the long game, right? And realize that the foundation for growth and the foundation for long-term pipeline and revenue isn't in focusing on trying to find the 3%. It's in figuring out how to create pipeline from the 37%. The first step in playing that long game is what I call getting in early, right? For those of you familiar with the funnel, and if you've been in marketing for more than 9 seconds, I'm sure you're familiar with the B2B funnel, right? This would be the very top of the funnel, right? According to Gartner, 80% of the buying journey happens before the lead is quote unquote sales ready, right? If your sales and marketing team is putting all of their eggs into the sales ready bucket only, you're likely missing out on about 80% of your revenue potential, right? Here's a couple other key takeaways from Gartner here. Content is the key foundation to online research. It gives your brand/company the opportunity to be the thought leader, right? That thought leader not only creates solutions, but also helps them solve their problem, right? No one wakes up one day and says, I need to buy a CRM. They do, however, wake up and think, I need to organize my prospects better. By getting in early, right, and educating your prospect or client with content, right, you're helping them build that narrative to how your solution and your technology solves their primary problem. Secondly, you'll notice the 22% of the process is meeting with the buying group, right? The buying group is here to stay, right? On average, at even small to mid-sized company, there are now 6 to 7 decision makers in every organization. Every technology implementation requires buy-in from finance, sales, marketing, IT, and the executive level, right? So being able to get in and influence and nurture and reach, right, the sub-buyers outside of your primary decision maker is going to be vital to helping and generate ROI long term.
All right, so we want to do our first poll, and I think a lot of what you just shared, Chris, sets this up really nicely. But a question we'd like to ask you here is which type of program do you find is most successful for your company in terms of getting in early, as Chris was discussing? So if you could just click on the response that is most appropriate to your business, as you'll see, the options are A, search and display advertising, B, content syndication, C, digital events, D, third-party co-branded content, or E, cold calling. So if you could pick the one that, again, is most aligned with your business, and hit submit, and we'll give this a couple seconds here so you can see the results. All right, great. And then I'll turn it back to you, Chris.
Thank you. Awesome. So where are sales and marketing teams missing today, right? As long as there has been sales and there has been marketing, there's been sales and marketing misalignment or a disconnect between sales and marketing. This disalignment is almost all of the time, almost always rooted in the demand generation functions. it's pretty rare that sales and marketing leaders are going to disagree about brand and content and topic, right? But they almost always find a way to disagree on leads generated, right? How many leads do we need? Should they be quality or should we go for quantity? What is quality? Are they too high quality? Are the leads sales ready? I only want sales ready leads. Okay, sure. I don't, right? So there is no magic potion for generating sales marketing leads, right? And believe it or not, coming from a seller, I want to give all the sellers out there a news flash that in-market opportunities are finite. There isn't a magic tree of sales-ready leads growing that marketers can just jump up, grab, and pick them off and pass them over to your team to generate revenue, right? The reality of the situation is that too many sales executives put too much pressure on marketing to give them layups from a lead perspective, and it's causing major risk between the two teams, right? At the end of the day, sales and marketing teams are built very differently. They have different targets, they have different goals, right? Sales' job is to create revenue at almost any cost, right? Burn the haystack to find the needle. Or, directly conversely to that, marketing is responsible for paying for that haystack, right? And your targets, your pipeline, your MQL goals are all associated with conversions and how well you're using your budget, right? And right now, because of this disalignment, 90% of all marketing generated leads aren't converting into pipeline, right? So we need to take a little bit of focus off of trying to identify in-market opportunities or people who are ready to buy now and put more focus on taking leads earlier stage and nurturing them and converting them into opportunities ready to buy 2, 3, 4, and 5 months from now. So what's the missing link, right? My contention is that the missing link is a role or a part of the organization, which I call lead development and qualification, right? And you're probably thinking, I already have that, right? Sales already has a sales development team, right? So lead development, qualification, and sales development are very different, right? So first and foremost, sales and business development roles right now report into the sales leadership organization 85% of the time in B2B companies, right? Marketing has nothing to do with them, what they do, or how they manage, right? Sales and business development roles are compensated almost always on meetings and pipeline, right? They are not concerned, nor do they care about conversion rates or return on investment on marketing and sales spend, right? Sales and business development teams should be 100% focused on outbound, right? That's what they are trained to do. Inbound lead development and outbound sales prospecting are very different skill sets and very different techniques. We hire sales development reps for the outbound side of the business to go find opportunity and create revenue for our account executives and account directors, right? And finally, if we were to find an increase of just 1% on most lead conversion, it can mean millions of dollars of pipeline for your marketing organization.
All right, great. So another setup for our next poll. So based on some of the things Chris was just talking about, would ask how would you describe the ICP, ideal customer profile alignment between your sales and marketing teams? A would be no alignment, B, some alignment, C, completely aligned. So I'll be curious to see how many people feel like they're completely aligned, but again, we'll give you about 20 seconds here to cast your vote, and then we'll give it a couple more seconds so you can see the results. All right, thanks. We'll turn it back to you, Chris.
So where does lead development fit, right? How do we fix that broken link between sales and marketing, right? So first and foremost, lead development reports into the marketing organization, right? Unlike most traditional sales development teams, it reports into marketing. Again, it is not a replacement. Lead development is not a replacement for sales development teams, right? It is designed to complement and free up the bandwidth for those sales development teams, right? Lead development teams are targeted by meeting meaning set and pipeline generated in direct correlation to their lead volume and marketing budgets, right? How much ROI is marketing getting from the spend? That's what lead development is targeted on, right? That being said, those lead development agents are focused 100% of the time on converting marketing generated leads to meetings, information requests, and opportunities and pipeline for the sales organization, right? 100% of what they do is take marketing qualified leads and turn them into opportunities for sales. They don't do any outbound. They don't do any task or follow-up strategies for the AEs. They don't have 50 or 60 different tasks they have to do across the sales org. They are laser focused and 100% on taking MQL and inbound leads and turning them into opportunities for sales. So what this does is it bridges the gap between sales and marketing, right? It allows the higher cost sales development reps, right, to do what they do best, and that's focused on outbound prospecting and turning, taking opportunities from your target accounts, from from high-end prospects, from companies that your team needs to be selling, and doing creative and strategic outbound prospecting them, and leaving the inbound lead follow-up, which is a completely different skill set, to the marketing team and the inbound lead development team. And finally, it allows marketers to take ownership of the full funnel all the way up until sales. We saw earlier on one of the slides that Gartner says 80% of B2B prospect engagement happens before they connect with sales, right? Right now, marketing only has responsibility for 20 or 30% of that, although they're being targeted in gold on the full 80%. We need to bring that ownership into the marketing organization so they can take a lead from top of funnel, right, nurture them to when they're MQL ready, and then follow up on those MQL leads and turn them into opportunities and pipeline for their sales organization. So how do you build a use case for lead development? I know what you're probably thinking, right? The first thing you're probably thinking is, how am I going to get approval for something that we already have, right? I already have a sales development team. They report into sales. There's a whole lot of them. It's a big budget pool, right? Right. So first thing you do is you can arm yourself with a couple of statistics, right? The reason that marketing generated leads are only marketing qualified and marketing generated leads are only converting at a less than 10% clip is primarily because the SDRs and the sales development team simply doesn't have the bandwidth to give them enough touches and enough focus to adequately convert them, right? Right now, only 24% of sales emails are being opened, and that number is declining rapidly. Sales acceleration technologies and automation technologies are creating a whole lot of junk spam email, and your B2B prospects are getting thousands and thousands of them. They don't require any humans to send them. They're all automated, and they come out in droves of hundreds and hundreds, right? Because of this email engagement and prospecting via email, those rates are dropping, and only 1 of 4 emails sent by a lead or a sales development rep is even being opened. 2, it takes on average 18 calls to connect with a decision maker, right? So just 18 time chances, right, to be able to just connect with someone, let alone convert them into a meeting and opportunity. Taking it a step further, the studies show that it takes on average 6 touches just to connect with an inbound lead. And this is someone who made it to your website, filled out the contact us free trial or demo request form and said, hey, I'm raising my hand, I'm interested. On average, it takes 6 touches just to reach that person, right? So all of that combined, right, means that sales and marketing, and the sales development team just doesn't have the bandwidth to reach all of your leads with enough touches to be able to adequately turn them into pipeline. And right, so I mean, the biggest thing to think about is, how much time is your sales development team wasting with tire kickers when they could be doing outbound lead generation and outbound programs into your target ABM list and helping your AEs, focus on generating meetings from their top prospects.
All right, that's a great transition to our final poll question. Who at your company books meetings for your sales team? And just give the best, most appropriate answer. Marketing, B, sales development reps, C, business development reps, or D, sales themselves. So again, we'll give you a couple seconds to provide the most accurate response, and then we'll go ahead and show the results. All right, back to you, Chris.
Thank you. So let's talk about options for lead development, right? Let's pretend you're bought in, you know you need this, you have executive buy-in, you have budget, you have everything lined up to line up your own lead development team, right? What are your options, right? And there's three primary options. There's obviously more and hybrids of some of these approaches, but when push comes to shove, it usually comes down to one of these three options for you. Let's talk about the pros and cons of each of them, right? The first one is a telemarketing vendor, someone who does 100% calling into your leads. They will pick up the phone, they will call, they will call, they will call, with the goal of turning them into, meetings, opportunities, and pipelines for you, right? The pros, these are generally cost effective, especially if you're using an offshore shop, and generally easy to scale, right? Finding, callers to call on thousands and thousands of leads isn't necessarily a complicated task, right? That being said, the cons are that most of these companies have a pretty long setup process, right? And a very lengthy long-term purchase commitment. They do this purposefully because they want you to be bought into their success. The more time you put into setup and the longer the contract you sign up for, the more bought in you are to proving the success of your investment, right? And, and we've all experienced in some form or fashion a telemarketing vendor where we had quality issues on, right? It's common, it happens, right? Something you're going to have to battle through if you choose to go with one of these vendors, right? The second option is email follow-up bots, and can't see me, but I'm using air quotes there, or quote unquote AI, right? So there are software and technologies that respond to inbound and or marketing qualified or marketing generated leads with an automated emails, a smart quote unquote email sequence, right? Bonuses there, right? The pros are that the implementation is somewhat turnkey, right? The setup isn't very challenging, and they can be somewhat cost effective. I mean, they're not expensive, but they're not cheap, but they're not expensive either, right? The cons, as we mentioned in the previous slide, email deliverability and responses are declining massively. If you're relying 100% on a bot that's only email driven, right, to generate opportunities from your leads, you are missing out on a significant amount of your opportunity potential, and you're missing out on a significant amount of opportunity to convert your leads. And then finally, you can build your own team internally, right? The pros are that you have complete control over the team. The team that you hire and build and train internally is obviously going to have a ton more product expertise than a team that comes from, an outsourced shop, right? And then long term, over the 5, 10, 12-year cycle, you'll probably have better cost metrics, right? The cons, short term, the costs are huge, right? You have to build the team, hire the team, recruit the team. You're going to have attrition, management, technology, software. All of those IOs and all of those signatures are going to require pretty massive upfront costs. It's also going to take a pretty huge time commitment. All the recruiting, all the hiring, all the training, all the onboarding, all the technology onboarding, right? A massive time commitment that most marketers, especially now with low bandwidth, just don't have, right? And obviously it requires resources outside of marketing, right? So you're going to have to connect with the recruiting team. You're going to have a ton of red tape. You're going to have, budget approvals and executive calls and all of that, right? All of this is complicated by the fact that a lot of companies right now are still on a hiring freeze. So even if you wanted to build your own and you had budget for it 3 or 4 months ago, it's just not possible right now. I wouldn't be talking about lead development and qualification if I didn't have a solution for it, right? So I wanted to take a couple quick seconds to focus on Pure B2B's Pure Conversion solution, right? We have a US-based team of lead development and qualification reps that can execute both outbound calling and email follow-up on any and all of your leads across any and all of the following use cases. Our most common use case are inbound and /MQL lead development qualification. This is taking leads that have reached the MQL stage for you or have engaged with your site, following up with them via email and phone, and qualifying them for your sales team, right? Asking 5, 6, 7 different questions that determine how qualified or how quality that lead is for your account executive or your account director. We also do quite a bit of outbound demand gen, where you give me a list or I build a list based on our intent metrics of target prospects, and we reach out to those target prospects again via email and phone with the goal of identifying folks who are ready for a meeting, have future interest, or are looking for more information. We also do our third most common use case is cold lead warm-up. I'm sure, like most marketers, we talked earlier that 90% of the leads you've generated over the past year didn't convert to an MQL or a sales-ready lead, my team is fantastically great at taking those old leads, reaching out to them and warming them up and turning them into new pipeline. So if you'd like to talk more about lead development, you can always reach me directly or reach out to someone on my team. Check out the Pure B2B website for a complete rundown of our lead development and qualification suite of products. Feel free to hit the Contact Us button or just call us directly and we'll be able to answer any questions, or talk about how we can solve for some of your lead development and qualification challenges. Thank you so much. I definitely appreciate everyone's time today.
All right, awesome, Chris. Good stuff. We got good questions coming in. Just a reminder to everyone, if you didn't get a chance to type in questions, go ahead and do that. We'll spend about 5 or 10 minutes going through questions. So, Chris, we had a question from Amy. So you talked about 30% of potential buyers in one of your first slides. So how do you recommend gaining access to those accounts, the ones that are in market, and building your contact list, et cetera, within those accounts that are showing the best potential?
So, there's a couple different ways, right? The way that I recommend is obviously through content and content promotion. The easiest way to gain initial interest and find the initial hand raisers is through either content syndication or content promotion, on your site, right? Intent is a great way to identify folks who are starting to do that research, right? Pure B2B leverages intent technology, and other vendors do as well, to try to identify who's researching and what companies are in market for specific solutions. You can identify those domains through intent and then promote your content, or you can target your advertising or your programs or your campaigns specifically at those companies.
Okay, awesome. Question from Ben: what sales and marketing infrastructure do you see benefiting the most from lead development?
Really, the marketing team, right? I think the marketing infrastructure is going to benefit the most, but also, sales is going to see an uptick as well. One of the biggest challenges for a sales leader, and I know this because I am one, is bandwidth, right? There's simply just not enough time in the day, right, to get to all the leads, to get to all the contacts you want to reach, right? So taking lead development off the plate of the sales organization, right, is going to generate a significant amount more bandwidth that they can do the other tasks that they need to do to generate revenue, and then correspondingly bringing that lead development function into marketing gives marketing a full control of how those leads are followed up on, so they can now own everything from the lead generation all the way to the follow-up to the point where it's a meeting for sales. Right, so it really works for both sides of the fence, and it shows significant upticks in productivity because, again, sales and marketing they're similar, but they're both targeted very differently. And having a team that specifically focuses on lead development conversion rates, right, and how much ROI you're getting out of marketing spend, right, is a significant uptick for the marketing side of the fence as well.
Okay, awesome. Julie asked, you touched on use cases quickly, but she said, what are some of the successes you've seen within companies that have implemented marketing lead or lead development programs?
Across our clients who've executed, right, one of our largest clients, we've been, the lead development team became the largest pipeline generating opportunity for the team, right? And instead of seeing what used to be a 5 to 7% top of funnel lead, to MQL conversion ratio, right, we ended up seeing, a 10 to 12%, right? So a lot of teams are seeing an uptick of almost 2x of, the amount of MQLs and how they're converting, right? The biggest challenge for every marketer right now is that they're generating MQL level leads, right, and sales just isn't following up on them, whether it's webinar and event leads or, leads that have engaged with multiple pieces of content and scored up, right, to the point where they're ready for sales, or even in some cases, leads that have engaged with the website and raised their hand and said, I'm ready to buy right now. Sales just doesn't have the bandwidth, right, to follow up on them, and marketing is paying the consequences for it.
Okay, awesome. Question from Patrick. He said he's worked at, venture-backed startups, he said, but he's now working at an enterprise company. And he's asking how scalable you think lead development programs can be for different size companies.
We have clients both, early stage startups where they have nothing and they're looking to build something. And then we have large clients as well who are looking to, again, take what they have and just make it more efficient. In larger enterprise companies, it usually requires more buy-in from multiple different divisions, and the sales process can be a little bit longer, right? But some of our largest clients and some of the biggest successes that we've seen have been at the enterprise level, where companies are generating thousands and thousands and thousands of leads every month, right? So the amount of bandwidth taken to follow up on those leads effectively suffers the most, right? So at the enterprise level, one would make the assumption that smaller companies have the biggest need because of bandwidth and time and cost savings, whereas the reality, a lot of times enterprise companies have the biggest need because the amount of leads and the amount of volume that they need to drive to hit their revenue goals are substantially higher than what their sales and sales development team's bandwidth can handle.
Okay, awesome. Jordan mentioned that their SDR team is focused primarily on driving meetings for their account team. Just how can outsourcing with a solution like yours fit in with a current sales and marketing structure?
Right. So again, as I mentioned earlier, lead development is designed to complement the current SDR team, right? Most SDRs don't even like following up on marketing-generated leads, right? They find it like a penance or something that they have to do, right? They would rather be hunting and out prospecting for opportunities that they think are the best opportunities, having the time to do really creative and custom outbound prospecting methodologies, and not have to worry about covering 70, 80, 90 marketing MQL generated leads that could or could not turn into revenue in their eyes, right? So if I'm an SDR and my company implements lead development, I'm excited because now I can focus my time on outbound prospecting, which is what I'm good at. I can control my own destiny and not have to check the boxes of following up with X amount of marketing generated leads each week. That, again, for the most part, most SDRs will tell you that they don't want to follow up on, nor do they have the time for it.
All right, great. We'll do one more question. Glenn said that since COVID, a lot of their leads have sort of stalled, and they feel like they're struggling with how to follow up with them. Any successes you've seen or any strategies you've seen in terms of applying lead development given the current market climate?
It's the lead development strategies have changed a little bit, and I'll not say current market because I feel like things are kind of, changing a little bit just here in July, August, and September, right? But back in March and April, right, a lot of lead development strategies shifted to a little bit more nurture, right? A little bit more selling the value, a little bit more talking long-term about what problems and solutions that your company could create. Most enterprise sales, again, involve, reaching out to 6 to 7 different decision makers and collecting data from them. So a lot of the lead development tactics and strategies that we used in Q2 were more focused on data collecting and not as much focused on trying to set firm meetings and and talk about pitching the product, right? So setting the foundation to where when budgets start opening up, and they will in the back half of 2020, you have a firm foundation of customers who've been educated, you've identified their needs, and now the sales team can attack those opportunities, with a strategic approach.
All right, great. Thanks a lot for this, Chris. I think it was really on point. There are a couple of questions we didn't get to, but I'll forward those to you and ask you to follow up with folks directly. But thanks. I thought this was great.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Quick reminder for everyone, the next session in the series is going to be on the recipe for connecting with buyers in virtual environments. That'll be today at 1 p.m. Eastern, so hopefully you can tune in for that. Quick reminder to go back and check the full session menu for any that you may have missed and want to catch on demand, and also share with your peers. So thanks again to Chris. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in today, and hopefully we'll see you on some of the upcoming sessions. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.